The space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark emptiness between three solar systems. It was a massive structure, built over 200 years by dozens of alien species working together. The station served as a meeting place for diplomats, traders, and travelers from across the galaxy. Thousands of beings lived and worked there, speaking hundreds of languages, eating strange foods, and following customs that would seem bizarre to anyone who had not grown up among the stars. In the central hub of the station, there was a great council chamber. The walls were made of a special crystal that had been mined from a distant moon. The crystal changed colors based on the emotions of those inside the room. Right now, the walls glowed a deep, angry red. Chief Matriarch stood at the center of the chamber. She was one of the most powerful and feared species in the known galaxy. They came from a planet with gravity 3 times stronger than Earth. This had made them evolve into massive, muscular creatures covered in silver fur. Stood nearly 3 meters tall. She had 4 arms, each one ending in paws that could extend claws sharp enough to cut through metal. Her eyes were the color of amber, and right now, those eyes burned with a mother's rage. "I will ask one more time," said. Her voice was low and dangerous. It echoed through the chamber like thunder rolling across mountains. "Where am I?" The assembled diplomats and station officials shifted nervously. There were representatives from 17 different species in the room. Some were tall and thin, with blue skin and multiple eyes. Others were short and round, covered in scales that shimmered under the lights. A few floated in special chambers filled with liquid or gas from their home worlds. All of them were afraid. Ambassador of the Hollow Moons hovered forward on his anti-gravity disk. He was a small creature, no bigger than a human child, with gray skin and large black eyes. His species was known for their skill in diplomacy, but even looked terrified. "Chief Matriarch," said carefully, "we have searched the entire station, every ship, every cargo hold, every living quarter. We have found nothing." "Then you have not searched well enough," growled. Standing behind was her daughter. She was younger than her mother, but just as large and powerful. Unlike her mother, whose silver fur was streaked with gray from age and wisdom, her coat was pure and bright. But her eyes were red from crying, and her 4 arms hung limply at her sides. She had not slept in 3 days, not since her cubs had disappeared. The cubs were barely 3 months old by standards. In human terms, they would be like toddlers just learning to walk. They were small and soft, their claws not yet hardened, their fur still downy and light. They were completely helpless without their mother. And someone had taken them. "The human vessel," said suddenly. "The one that arrived 4 days ago, have you searched it?" Hesitated. "The humans have been very cooperative, Chief Matriarch. They opened their ship to our security teams without any argument. Nothing suspicious was found." "Humans," said a voice from the back of the chamber. It belonged to Commander Vex, a military officer from a species called the Iron Chain. He was covered in hard, metallic plates that served as natural armor. "The humans are newcomers. They have only been part of the galactic community for 200 years. They are weak and primitive. Why would they risk war with the—" "Perhaps because they are stupid," another voice suggested. "Or perhaps because they do not understand what they have done." His eyes narrowed. The humans were indeed newcomers to space travel. Their small diplomatic ship, the Starling, had arrived at Nexus Prime carrying only 20 crew members and 3 diplomats. It was a tiny vessel compared to the massive warships of the trading fleets of the merchant guilds. The humans themselves were small and soft, with no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. They seemed almost pathetically fragile compared to most species in the galaxy. But had not become Chief Matriarch by underestimating anyone. "Bring the humans before me," she commanded. "I will question them myself." The crystal walls of the chamber pulsed with red light as guards were dispatched to fetch the human delegation. On the human ship Starling, Ambassador Grace was packing in her small office. She was 53 years old, with gray hair that she kept tied back in a neat bun. Her face showed the lines of someone who had spent decades dealing with difficult situations, and her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She had been a diplomat for 30 years, first on Earth and then among the stars. She had negotiated treaties with species that communicated through color changes, and she had kept her calm while discussing trade agreements with beings that could have eaten her in one bite. But this situation was different. This situation could start a war. "Tell me again," Grace said to her aide, Danny, "everything you know." Danny was young, only 26, with dark hair and nervous brown eyes. He held it in his hands like it was a shield. 3 days ago, the cubs disappeared from the nursery section of the station. The mother put them down for their rest cycle and left to attend a meeting. When she came back 2 hours later, they were gone. Any signs of forced entry? None. The security feeds show nothing unusual. It is like they simply vanished. Grace stopped packing. "Children do not vanish, Danny. Someone took them or they wandered off. What about the scent trail?" Danny swallowed. "That is the problem, Ambassador. They have an extremely strong sense of smell. They tracked the cubs' scent through the corridors and it led to our docking bay." Grace felt her stomach drop. "To our docking bay specifically?" "Yes, ma'am. The trail ends at the entrance to Bay 12. That is where the Starling is docked." "But we were searched. They found nothing." "I know, but they are not convinced. They think we are hiding something." The door to the office slid open, and Burke walked in. She was the security officer for the Starling, a woman in her early 30s with broad shoulders and short brown hair. She had been a soldier before becoming a ship security officer, and she moved with the easy confidence of someone who knew how to handle herself in a fight. Her face was calm, but Grace noticed that her hands were jammed deep in the pockets of her hoodie. "Ambassador said, we have been summoned to the council chamber. The chief matriarch wants to question us personally." Grace closed her eyes for a moment. "Of course she does." She opened her eyes and looked at her small team. "Listen to me carefully. We are about to walk into a room full of very large, very angry aliens who think we stole their children. We need to be calm, polite, and completely honest. Do you understand?" "Yes, Ambassador," Danny said. Just nodded. The walk from the docking bay to the council chamber took 15 minutes. The corridors of Nexus Prime were wide and tall, designed to accommodate species of all sizes. Grace and her team passed beings that towered over them and creatures that around their feet. The air smelled of a dozen different atmospheres mixed together, filtered and recycled to be breathable for most species. Normally, the corridors were full of noise and activity. Merchants calling out their goods, diplomats hurrying to meetings, children of various species playing games that humans could not begin to understand. But today, the corridors were quiet. Word had spread about the missing cubs. Everyone knew that they were angry, and no one wanted to get caught in the crossfire. When they reached the council chamber, the great crystal doors swung open to admit them. Grace walked in first, with Danny close behind her. Brought up the rear, her eyes scanning the room with professional caution. The chamber was enormous. The crystal walls glowed red, casting strange shadows across the floor. Hundreds of beings filled the observation galleries, watching in silence. At the center of the room stood, massive and terrifying. Beside her was the grieving mother. Behind them, ranks of guards stood ready, their claws extended. Grace stopped at the designated spot for those being questioned. She took a deep breath and bowed slightly. "Chief Matriarch, I am Ambassador Grace of the United Earth Coalition. We are here to assist in any way we can." Looked down at her. This amber eyes seemed to pierce right through Grace, searching for lies, for weakness, for guilt. "Ambassador, your species is young. You have been among the stars for only a short time. Perhaps you do not understand the gravity of this situation." "I understand that you are missing," Grace replied steadily. "I understand that you are afraid for them. As a mother myself, I cannot imagine the pain you and your daughter must be feeling." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps or respect. "You have children." "2 daughters, both grown now. But I remember when they were small. I remember the fear that came with every illness, every accident, every moment when I did not know where they were." Stepped forward, her voice was hoarse from crying. "Then you understand why we must find them. They are so small, so helpless, they cannot survive without me." "I understand," Grace said gently. "And I swear to you, on my life and the lives of my daughters, that neither I nor anyone on my ship has harmed your cubs." Studied her for a long moment. Then she turned her gaze to Danny. The young man flinched but held his ground. "You said, the young one, what do you know?" Danny's voice shook slightly, but he answered clearly. Chief Matriarch, I am Ambassador's aide. I handle communications and records. I have reviewed all of our ship's logs from the past 4 days. There is no record of any unauthorized access to the Starling and no record of any cubs being brought aboard. Records can be altered. Yes, they can, but our ship has been searched 3 times by your security teams. They found nothing because there is nothing to find. Sai's moved too. The security officer stood perfectly still, her face blank, her hands still in her hoodie pockets. And you, said slowly, the warrior, you have been quiet. Met the chief matriarch's gaze without flinching. I am Security Officer Burke. My job is to protect the ambassador and the crew of the Starling. I have nothing to add to what has already been said. Nothing took a step closer. Even from several meters away, she towered over. The scent trail of my leads to your docking bay. The trail ends there. It does not continue into the station. It does not return to the nursery. It simply stops. I cannot explain that, Chief Matriarch. Cannot or will not. A tension filled the room. The crystal walls flickered between red and a darker shade, almost purple. In the galleries, beings held their breath. Then spoke again, her voice dropping to something that was almost a whisper. Let me tell you what I think happened, human. I think you found my wandering in the corridor. I think you took them, perhaps out of curiosity, perhaps out of something darker. I think you are hiding them somewhere on your ship, in a place our security teams did not think to look. Grace stepped forward. Chief Matriarch, I must protest these accusations. Silence did not take her eyes off. I think that if you do not tell me where my are, I will tear your ship apart piece by piece until I find them. And then I will tear your species apart for the insult you have given mine. The threat hung in the air. It was not an empty one. They had a fleet of warships that could reduce Earth to rubble in a matter of days. They were one of the founding members of the Galactic Council, with allies and treaties spanning hundreds of systems. If they declared war on humanity, it would be a slaughter. And it would all be because of 2 missing cubs. Grace opened her mouth to speak, to try to diffuse the situation, but before she could say anything, a sound cut through the tension of the chamber. It was a chirp. A small, soft, warbling chirp. Everyone froze. The sound came again, higher this time, more insistent. His head snapped toward the human delegation. Her eyes locked onto Burke. That sound breathed. That is a cub, that is my cub. Stood absolutely still, but something was moving under her hoodie. A small bulge shifted near her stomach, pushing against the fabric. Then another bulge appeared beside it. Officer Burke, Grace said. Her voice was very calm, but her face had gone pale. What is that? Closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, there was resignation in her expression. Ambassador, I can explain. You will explain to me, snarled. She moved forward with terrifying speed, closing the distance between them in 2 massive strides. What have you done with my? And then, as if in answer, 2 tiny paws emerged from the front pocket of his hoodie. A small face followed. It was covered in soft silver fur, with large amber eyes that blinked in the sudden brightness. The face was followed by another, slightly smaller, peeking out from beside the first. The cubs looked around the council chamber with curious expressions. When they spotted, they began chirping frantically, their little paws waving in the air. For a long moment, no one moved, no one breathed. Then rushed forward, a sound escaping her that was half sob and half cry of joy. Quickly reached into her hoodie and carefully extracted the cubs. They were warm and soft, their small bodies squirming with excitement. Gathered them into her 4 arms and held them close, making a low, rumbling sound in her chest. They are alive, whispered. They are unharmed, they smell of warmth and food and safety. She looked at with an expression of utter bewilderment. How is this possible? The council chamber erupted into chaos. Diplomats shouted questions. Guards moved forward, then stopped, unsure what to do. The crystal walls flickered through a rainbow of colors, unable to settle on any single emotion. Raised 1 massive paw, and silence fell instantly. Explain, she said her voice was no longer angry. It was something else now, something complicated. Explain what you have done. Stood straight like a soldier giving a report. 3 days ago, in the early hours of the station's night cycle, I was walking through the corridors near the nursery section. I could not sleep. I often have trouble sleeping, so I walk. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I heard crying, not the kind of crying that means danger or pain, the kind that means loneliness, the kind that means someone wants to be held. Grace watched her security officer with a mixture of horror and fascination. She had known for 5 years, and she had never heard her speak so many words at once. I followed the sound, continued. It led me to a maintenance shaft near one of the ventilation systems. The panel had been left open by a repair crew. The cubs must have crawled inside while exploring. They were stuck between some pipes, wedged in too tight to back out on their own. The maintenance shaft, Ambassador said suddenly. He was consulting his rapidly. There was a repair scheduled in that area 3 days ago. The work order shows that the crew left early due to a ventilation malfunction in another section. They must have forgotten to seal the access panel. Sci's never left. Continue. I pulled them out. It was not easy. They were scared and cold. When I finally got them free, they grabbed onto me and would not let go. His voice softened slightly. They were so small, they were shaking. One of them was making this little sound like a whimper. I meant to bring them straight to security. I truly did. But you did not, said. No, I did not, met the chief matriarch's gaze. When I tried to put them down, they screamed, not chirped, screamed, like something terrible was happening to them, and when I picked them up again, they went quiet. They pressed against me and started making this sound, this vibration in their chests. Purring, said softly. She was still holding her cubs, who had calmed down and were now nuzzling against her fur. They were purring. It is a sound of contentment, of safety. Nodded. Where I come from, we have animals called cats. They are small predators, but they have been our companions for thousands of years. They make the same sound when they are happy. When I was a child, my grandmother took care of abandoned kittens. She would keep them warm and feed them until they were strong enough to survive on their own. You thought of your grandmother, Grace said quietly. Yes, jaw tightened. These cubs were lost and scared and cold. They needed someone. I was there. It was not a choice I made with my head. It was a choice I made with something else. Was very still. You hid them for 3 days. You caused a diplomatic crisis. You brought your species to the edge of war, all because you could not put them down. Yes. That is either very brave or very foolish. Probably both, admitted. Danny stepped forward hesitantly. Chief Matriarch, if I may, Officer Burke did not act alone. When I noticed she was taking extra food rations, I asked her about it. She showed me the cubs. All eyes turned to him. Danny swallowed hard but continued. We used our medical database to research nutritional needs. The closest match we could find to your maternal milk was something called goat's milk from Earth. We synthesized a formula that would be safe for them. We fed them every 4 hours, kept them warm, made sure they were healthy. You helped her hide them, said accusingly. I helped her take care of them, Danny corrected. There is a difference. Had been examining her cubs closely during this exchange. She sniffed them carefully, checked their claws and ears, felt their bellies. Her expression shifted from relief to amazement. Mother said, these cubs are healthier than when they disappeared. They have gained weight. Their fur is clean and brushed. Their claws have been carefully trimmed. She looked at with something approaching wonder. You groomed them. Shrugged uncomfortably. They seemed itchy. I watched some videos on the station network about care practices. I did my best. A strange silence fell over the chamber. The crystal walls had stopped flickering. They now glowed a soft, uncertain blue. Moved closer to. The chief matriarch's massive form blocked out the light, casting the human woman in shadow, but did not step back. She did not show fear. You watched videos, said slowly. You learned our grooming rituals. You synthesized our milk. You woke every 4 hours to feed cubs that were not yours from a species you barely know. Yes. Why? Blinked. What do you mean, why? Why did you do this? You could have brought them to security. You could have explained what happened. Instead, you risked everything. Your career, Your freedom, your life, the lives of your entire species. Why? Was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but steady. Because they were alone, because they were afraid, because when I held them they stopped crying, she looked up at. Where I come from there is a saying, the measure of a person is how they treat those who can do nothing for them. These cubs could not do anything for me. They could not pay me. They could not help me. They were just two small lives that needed someone to care. I was there, so I cared. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Then one of the cubs in its arms began to squirm. It wiggled free from its mother's grip and tumbled to the floor. Before anyone could react, the little creature scampered across the crystal floor on unsteady legs, heading straight for. It climbed up her leg, pulling itself up the fabric of her pants with its tiny, soft claws. It climbed up her shirt. It climbed up to her chest and burrowed into the warmth of her hoodie, pressing against her heart. Then it chirped once happily and began to purr. Made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. My son, he has always been the more adventurous one. He knows what he wants. Looked down at the small bulge in her hoodie, then up at the chief matriarch. I am sorry. I did not mean to cause so much trouble. I just could not leave them. Studied her for a long moment. The massive's expression was unreadable. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the chamber. She knelt. The chief matriarch of the collective, one of the most powerful beings in the known galaxy, knelt before a human woman half her size. The action brought them face to face, amber eyes meeting brown. Among my people, said quietly, there is a tradition as old as our species. When a stranger saves a child without thought of reward, that stranger is no longer a stranger. They become family. A murmur ran through the chamber. Several diplomats gasped. You did not just save my, continued. You cared for them, you fed them, you kept them warm, you groomed them with your own hands, you did what a mother does, what a family does. She reached out with one massive paw and gently, so gently, touched shoulder. You have shown more honor than beings who have known us for centuries. You have earned something that cannot be bought or traded. What is that? Asked. Our loyalty, stood. From this day forward, Burke of Earth, you are a friend of the collective. Your enemies are our enemies. Your battles are our battles. Any who threaten you will answer to us. The chamber erupted into shocked whispers. This was unprecedented. They were famously private. They did not form bonds with outsiders. They certainly did not declare friendship with species as young and weak as humans. Grace stepped forward carefully. Chief Matriarch, we are honored beyond words, but surely this is too much. Officer Burke simply did what any decent person would do. Turned to face her. That ambassador is precisely the point. She did what a decent person would do, but decent people are rare in this galaxy. Most beings would have handed the cubs to security and thought nothing more of it. Some might have used them as leverage, demanding rewards or favors. A few might have harmed them. Her eyes hardened. 3 cycles ago, I was prepared to destroy your species. I was convinced that you had stolen my for some dark purpose. And instead, I find that one of your people risked everything to keep them safe and warm. She looked around the chamber at the assembled diplomats and officials. Let this be remembered. Let this be recorded in every archive and every history. When the humans could have abandoned the helpless, they did not. When they could have profited from misfortune, they did not. When they could have walked away, they stayed. She raised her voice so it echoed off the crystal walls. The humans are young and small and weak, but they have something that many older species have forgotten. They have heart. Moved forward, still cradling her remaining cub. There is more, Mother. My son has bonded with this human. The attachment is genuine. He will not be happy if he is separated from her. Looked alarmed. I do not want to take him from his family. I just wanted to make sure he was safe. You will not take him from his family, said gently. You will join his family. She smiled, showing teeth that could bite through steel. On any other face, it might have been terrifying. On hers, it was warm. You are his second guardian now. This is our way. When a cub bonds with someone outside the mother, that someone becomes part of the child's life forever. Forever, Danny squeaked. Childhood lasts approximately 30 standard years, informed them. During that time, the second guardian has rights and responsibilities. You will have quarters in the section of the station. You will attend his nomming ceremony. You will be consulted on major decisions regarding his upbringing. Stared at her. I cannot. I have a job. I have responsibilities. I cannot just move to the section. Your job is to protect the ambassador, yes? Asked. Then protect her from here. We will provide resources. We will ensure your ship has everything it needs. She tilted her head. Or do you wish to refuse? It was not really a question. Refusing a bond with a cub would be an insult beyond measure. It would undo everything that had just happened. Looked down at the cub in her hoodie. He had fallen asleep, his tiny body rising and falling with each breath. His purring was like a small engine, vibrating against her chest. I do not want to refuse, she admitted quietly. I just did not expect any of this. Life rarely goes as expected, said. This is true on any world. Grace cleared her throat. Chief Matriarch, what about the diplomatic situation? We came to this station to negotiate trade agreements. If Officer Burke is now part of a family, how does that affect relations between our peoples? Amber eyes gleamed with something that might have been amusement. Ambassador, 3 cycles ago, your species was unknown and unimportant. A curiosity, a footnote in galactic history. She gestured broadly at the chamber full of watching diplomats. Now, every being in this room knows what humans are willing to do for those in need. They know that you will risk everything to protect the helpless. They know that you have been honored by the collective. She leaned closer to Grace. Your trade agreements will be signed. Your proposals will be heard. Species that would not have given you a second glance will now seek you out as potential allies. You wanted to establish humanity's place in the galaxy. Congratulations. You have done so in a way that no amount of negotiating could have achieved. Grace blinked. You are saying that Officer Burke accidentally did more for human-alien relations than our entire diplomatic corps. I am saying that she showed the galaxy who humans really are. That is worth more than 1,000 treaties, straightened to her full height. Now, there is much to discuss, arrangements to make, a nomming ceremony to plan. She looked at with something that was almost fondness. Your life is about to change, little human. I hope you are ready. Looked at Grace, then at Danny, then at the sleeping cub in her hoodie. I do not think anyone is ever ready for something like this, but I will do my best. That, said, is all anyone can ask. The council chamber began to empty as beings dispersed to spread the news of what had happened. Within hours, the story would be on every news network in the galaxy. The tale of the human who saved the cubs would become famous. It would be told and retold, growing with each telling, becoming legend. But for now, in the quiet that followed the chaos, Burke stood with a sleeping cub against her heart and wondered how her life had changed so completely in just 3 days. Approached her carefully, the other cub still cradled in her arms. Up close, without the fear and tension of the confrontation, could see that the young mother was beautiful in an alien way. Her silver fur shimmered in the light, and her amber eyes were warm. Thank you, said simply. I know that words are not enough, but thank you. I did not do it for thanks, replied. I did it because it needed to be done. I know that is why it matters so much. Reached out with one of her lower arms and gently touched the bulge in hoodie where her son slept. He is called a seeking name right now. It is what we call cubs before their nomming ceremony. But when he is named, you will be there. You will speak the words that welcome him into the world. I do not know the words. You will learn. You will have 30 years to learn everything about us. Smile was gentle. My mother was right. You have joined our family, and take family very seriously. Danny appeared at its elbow. Sam, I just got a message from Captain Tors. He wants to know what is happening. The whole ship has been watching the broadcast. Groaned, of course they have. Tell the captain I will give him a full report as soon as I can. And what should I tell him about the situation? Looked around the council chamber, at the crystal walls that had finally settled into a calm, peaceful blue, at the guards who now regarded her with something approaching respect, at the chief matriarch who was deep in conversation with Ambassador about new diplomatic protocols. Tell him, said slowly, that the situation is resolved and that I might need to renegotiate my contract. Danny grinned. I will tell him, but Sam, for what it is worth, I think you did the right thing. even though I caused an interstellar incident. Even then, sometimes doing the right thing causes trouble, but it is still the right thing. The cub in her hoodie stirred, making a small, sleepy sound. Automatically reached up to pat the bulge, a gesture that was already becoming natural. I never wanted to be famous, she muttered. I just wanted to do my job. Well, Danny said cheerfully, now your job includes being the second guardian to a cub. I am sure there is a pay raise in there somewhere. Go write your report, Danny. Yes, ma'am. As Danny hurried off, Grace approached. The ambassador looked tired but satisfied. Officer Burke, I should probably be angry with you. Probably. You kept secrets from me. You risked a war. You hid 2 alien children in your clothing for 3 days while the entire station was searching for them. Yes, Ambassador. Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and patted on the shoulder. You also showed everyone in this galaxy that humans are worth knowing. You earned us more goodwill in one act of kindness than I could have achieved in a decade of negotiations. She smiled slightly. I would say you are fired, but apparently you are now legally obligated to stay in this sector for the next 30 years, so I suppose I am stuck with you. I am sorry, Ambassador. No, you are not. No, admitted, I am not. Grace laughed. It was a tired laugh, but a real one. Get some rest, Officer Burke. Tomorrow we start figuring out how to incorporate family obligations into your duty schedule. It is going to be complicated. Everything about this is complicated. Welcome to diplomacy. Grace started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Burke, when you write your official report about this incident, try to make yourself sound a little less heroic. We do not want other crew members thinking they can cause interstellar crises just because they found something cute. Snorted, I will do my best. Left alone in the emptying chamber, finally allowed herself a moment of quiet. She found a bench along the wall and sat down carefully, making sure not to disturb the sleeping cub. Her legs ached from standing so long. Her heart was still beating too fast. Her mind was spinning with everything that had happened. 3 days ago, she had just been a security officer on a small diplomatic ship. She had a simple job and a simple life. She got up, did her duty, went to sleep, and did it all again the next day. Now she was part of an alien family. She had a responsibility that would last for 3 decades. She had changed the relationship between humanity and one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. All because she could not walk past a crying sound without investigating. The cub stirred again. He poked his small head out of the hoodie and looked up at her with those big amber eyes. He chirped once, a questioning sound. Hey, little one, said softly. You caused a lot of trouble, you know that. The cub chirped again, then yawned hugely, showing tiny teeth that would one day be able to bite through metal. Yeah, I know, you did not mean to, you were just exploring. She reached down and gently scratched behind his ear. He pushed into her hand and started purring again. I understand. I used to get into trouble for exploring when I was young too. The cub closed his eyes and settled back into the warmth of her hoodie. Within moments, he was asleep again. Leaned her head back against the wall and closed her own eyes. She was exhausted. She had barely slept in 3 days between caring for the cubs and worrying about being discovered. Now that the crisis was over, all that stress was catching up with her. But even through her exhaustion, she could not help but smile. She had done the right thing. It had been dangerous and foolish and had nearly started a war, but it had been the right thing. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The crystal walls of the council chamber glowed a soft, gentle blue, the color of peace, the color of new beginnings. And in the quiet of that ancient room, a human woman and a cub slept together, their heartbeats slowly falling into the same rhythm. This was how it began. Not with treaties or negotiations or careful diplomatic protocols, not with grand speeches or historic meetings. It began with kindness, simple, unremarkable kindness, the kind that does not ask for reward or recognition, the kind that simply sees a need and fills it. In the years to come, historians would point to this moment as the beginning of the human alliance. They would analyze it. They would debate it. They would write long academic papers about the geopolitical implications. But the truth was simpler than any academic paper could capture. A woman heard crying, she helped, and the galaxy changed. That was the power of humanity, not in their weapons or their technology or their economic might. Those things would grow with time. But from the very beginning, from their first steps into the wider universe, humans carried something with them that many older species had lost. They carried compassion. And compassion, as the galaxy was learning, could move worlds. The story of Burke and the Cubs would spread across 100 systems. It would be translated into 1,000 languages. It would be taught to children of species that humans had not yet encountered. And always the lesson would be the same. The humans are small, the humans are weak, the humans are young. But if you are lost, if you are afraid, if you are alone in the dark, find a human. They will help. They cannot do otherwise. It is simply who they are. And that, more than any weapon or any army, is what would make humanity great. Not conquest, not power, just kindness. Simple, stubborn, unreasonable kindness. The kind that risks everything for a stranger. The kind that holds a crying child and refuses to let go. The kind that changes the universe, one small act at a time. This was humanity's gift to the stars. And the stars, finally, were beginning to understand.